The URC is back with a full round of 8 fixtures to get through, and we'll be reviewing the final Autumn International Series game between Ireland and the Wallabies. Let's get straight to it. Welcome back to the show, the United Rugby Rewind. I am joined by the Rugby ABC as usual, Alan, Ben, and Kaylin. Good evening, gents.
Hi
Good
guys.
evening.
But we've got so much rugby to talk about this week that we're just going to jump into. We've been doing the internationals up until now, and it's only been 5 games to talk about with the Five Nations. Now we're back to the old schedule, and we've got to try and do it in less than 2 hours. So, getting straight onto it. Um, First game we're going to talk about is going to be the Saturday evening game between Munster and Lions. Breaking with tradition, we're going to let the loser go first. So, Alan, what was your take on the game?
Extremely disappointing from the Lions' point of view. I think they didn't have many Springboks on the tour over here, so I expected more from them. We're always a bit nervous when it comes to the weather, up north. I think Munster were there for the taking. For a team as structured as the Lions, it's very, very disappointing that their only try came from an individual moment of brilliance, so to speak. And then there was a few opportunities at the end of the game where they just like absolutely no big match, no what's the word, BMT, like knocking the ball on, really bad. So very, very disappointed in the results, and I think we were lucky to get away with the bonus point. So very disappointing.
Yeah, how do you think the break worked out for the Lions? Do you think you benefited from having the time off, or do you think you've lost your rhythm?
I think we probably benefited from it. I think we lost the game before we just lost the game before that to Leinster, didn't we? So I knew it was going to be a tough game, and to come away with a bonus point is a plus. If I look at it from a purely look at the league table and that kind of thing, I think we're sixth at the moment, so we're still in a good place to make a launch now. So we have to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But when you look at the actual stats of the game, especially when it comes to penalties conceded, that's very
Yeah.
disappointing from a Lions point of view that they
Well, it
couldn't.
says it says three there for the Lions, 3 penalties conceded in the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there might have been one or two, more than that, but I think that there was definitely opportunities for the Lions to. They could have taken a couple of 3 pointers, and they decided to go for line outs, and then the ball was spilling loose. The ball was like a bar of soap. But there was one point specifically when um, Nahamba got the ball, and then he passed, and it got kicked forward by the Munster guy, and then we ended up defending on our own try line. That was very, very frustrating. Right at the end of the game, and I think Munster were definitely there. For us to, they did us a bit of a favor. They looked a bit like the Stormers when they were running around on the field. So I think we kind of, I know it was difficult for Munster as well, but it's a real, motivational game for Munster to have that win and to come away with it. And it's good that we could keep them to the amount of, even the tries Munster scored. I think disappointing from a Lions point of view.
Yeah. So what's the name of the winger who scored that try? Is it Henko van Wyk? Is that
Henko
it?
van Wyk, he was the, I think,
Okay.
outside centre, was he? Yeah.
Think of Van yeah.
Yeah, Henko van Wyk. And he's been injured for quite a while, so he hasn't played many games. But he is obviously coming. He's one for the future. Very, very good player. That he's rated quite highly in South Africa. But like I said, disappointing that the only try we scored was from that individual piece of play. And there was nothing, as you would expect, more tries, a few other intelligent plays, line outs, and structured play getting us a few tries because we had the physicality to do it, but we just didn't. We weren't taking our penalties. I don't think we caught a ball the whole game. I think the aerial game was all Munster. So overall, I just think very, very. There's not many positives to take away other than the fact that we got a bonus point, and I think that's about it really. But thinking that it's an international, break, and all the players were back and stuff, and there weren't any that went for the Springboks with the Lions, we would have expected a bit more than that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kaylin, from a Munster point of view, back on the wagon, back winning games. Not the strongest Munster team I've ever seen in my life in terms of the team sheet. So you got to be happy to get away just back with the W again this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can understand why Alan would be disappointed. I do think no matter what side lost that game, no matter what way it finished, you would have been disappointed because there wasn't a huge pile between the two teams. Like there was one of the things that popped into my head, and I meant to text it to you, Hugh, was the first half was a snapshot for just because there's high ball in play doesn't mean it's the greatest quality. Because like the first like 15 minutes, there was only like two stoppages, for scrums. Like it was really fast paced, but there was a lot of handling errors. Now, very greasy night. You might have seen the videos on Twitter, but still very happy to get the result. Now, as people will know, and we haven't really discussed it on here, but Andy Kyriakou, the Munster forwards coach, also departed the club last week. Alex Codling, I should say, sorry, it's something in my throat, has joined up with the team. He's formerly of Newcastle, for people who remember him from being there. But he's with the Ireland women's team. First day out, lineout looked better. Now there's a new manager bounce element. There's just dialing everything back at lineout time element. That was really impressive. Ian Costello name checked him in the press conference afterwards when I put the question to him. He was very happy. But one of the things that I was really happy with from Munster was the performances of some of the newer guys in there. So Takir Abrahams, firstly. Now I'm going to credit two South Africans here, so it's fine. Firstly, Takir Abrahams was excellent. He was really, really good. Like, he's electric. The actual try that he set up for Shane Daly, he covers about 60, 70 meters before he even gets onto the ball. He runs parallel to the attacking line, right in behind, and eventually gets in on the arc. And he was just looked like he would do something with every touch. Shane McCarthy in the other wing was really good. DM Bluler, this was his debut. Now, I don't know how much you guys would have known of him. He was Curry Cup with the Sharks, played a couple of URC games. So powerful. 16 tackles and 12 carries or 14 carries or something like that. He was immense in just 66 minutes. And then Evan O'Connell, I have to mention him because I mentioned him before after the New Zealand game. He's Paul O'Connell's nephew. There'll be that name value, that draw towards him. Again, he had something like 19 tackles in this game. He was everywhere. For a game that was predominantly, high ball in play insofar as neither team really put the ball out or kick deep or whatever. It was very much contestable, keep ball in hand with mistakes. A lot of very good defensive efforts. And as much as I do agree with Alan that like that moment on the Munster line where Munster fly hack it downfield and go down the length of the field is very disappointing. From a Munster perspective, there was 2 or 3 of those moments defensively where they just looked very assured and very confident that they would hold out. Gavin Coombs had 2 fantastic interventions in those moments. And like, for Munster, having looked underpowered a lot, and this is still a team without a Hearn, Jaeger, Klein, Byrne, O'Mahony, Luckman, that's really impressive because it was the night where, especially around midway through that first half, I was thinking, set piece, that big Lions scrum, their big forward pack could be what just decides this one. I knew it was only going to be a 1-score game, and I think a 1-score game was reflective of it no matter what way it went. But very, very happy to get away with one. And not quite as getting away with one as, say, Ireland, who we might talk about later, or other teams, but very happy to just leave the losing slide there and go into Europe now with a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, going back to you, Alan, with the Lions, what's the fly half situation with the Lions at the moment? Because I've got to be honest, I've lost track of who's starting at 10. It was No Hamba, and then there was what's his
Yeah,
what's
Vol
his name?
Hunter's been starting for the Lions, and he's actually done all right over the last couple of years, last couple of games, sorry, since the beginning of the URC. But it tends to be Nahamba who comes on and does the fly off role. But I'm not sure why he didn't start. I know he used to play for the Sharks, and he would start at scrum half. But the Lions have been playing him as a fly half. But I think they wanted a bit more, almost like a Marnie Libok, Andre Pollard situation where you're probably trying to structure the game. They probably thought the Bull Hunter was probably more effective. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong because I haven't actually heard that much about the guy. So sorry for all our listeners. I'm sure you'll all correct me again. But I think they wanted to try and manage the game. So, and I don't think it was working. I think when you're trying to manage the game with the pack we have, and then you're not taking threes, and then you bring Nahamba on, and then he starts making a few erratic passes and that kind of thing, it gets really difficult. So I think, in the dry, if that was in Johannesburg, they probably would have won the game. That's just what happens when you're overseas. These games are so important. Your home games are so important to win. Any away games that you win in the north, and in fact for you guys in the south, is a real game changer. And I do think that they just, prefer the dry conditions. I think I've mentioned it to you guys every single time we've had a game. I've said, what's the weather going to be like? And that's probably, when it comes to the ball being slippery, that was probably the worst conditions for a team like the Lions. But then again, take your 3 points. You can't keep on kicking for if you're not going to, if you're getting these penalties. We may have discussed this previously with the Stormers as well. You're getting your penalties from scrums and that kind of thing. Then you got to take kicks and get your line outs right, and they didn't do it. So yeah,
Just really
unfortunate.
quickly before I move off on it, because Munster at the start of the season tended to trail off towards the end of the games. Some of that was because the depths with the injuries in key positions, it was just killing them. Do you think that's starting to kick in for the Lions? Because like in some of their wins, they've trailed off, but that's natural sometimes. But like that Leinster game, it looked like a lack of belief. This one kind of looked like a lack of belief at times that they could, just wrestle back momentum and go over the line.
I think, and this is a key niggle of mine through all the South African teams at the moment. Out of the teams which don't drop off, or I think the Lions are the best out of keeping a standard. But if you look at the last quarter of the game, it was predominantly the Lions who had the ball and were trying to attack, and they just kept spilling it forward in the tackles. I know the game in Edinburgh is when Edinburgh came to Johannesburg, it was the same thing again. They do teams. South African teams generally, when they come up north, seem to drop off, and they do seem to drop off at home as well. So it's something I probably need to keep a bit of an eye on. But I did say to my wife at one point, not in that specific game, we'll talk about it later. I said we've got to keep an eye on this game because the South African teams are always going to give you an opportunity to come back into the game. And I was just hoping it would take a line break from Henko van Wyk or Edwill van der Merwe and to just at least draw the game, because in the last couple of plays of the game, there was an opportunity to draw the game. There was an opportunity there and they didn't take it. And that's so frustrating.
It was definitely there. Like every time, I know Van der Merwe and Van Wyk both came off. Van Wyk on the 69th minute, Van der Merwe on the 72nd minute. But they look to be the only real spark. Now, to be fair, I think Munster managed their kicking game really well. They didn't kick directly to Quan Horn basically all game. They did not want him running back at them. Even Van der Merwe probably had 2 kicks kicked down his throat and he ran both of them back. So like, you can't give them an inch. But as you said, and to be fair, Jim Barron
It's the Lions though, isn't it? That's their identity.
It
it's
is.
their DNA.
And like Jim Barron mentioned this after the game, but like they sensed from early on, because how greasy the ground was. Once you hit the ground, the ball had a chance of just popping out because it was just that slippery. And I think the Lions, I'm not gonna say they didn't adjust to it, because it's a very like niggly kind of a night in those kind of conditions. I don't blame them for not adjusting, but I think if they had, or if it just had been drier, I think it's a very different game, because it was those small things in just such a it's literally such a small margin thing, like how the ball scuffles out, and it happened 3 or 4 times to both teams when they hit the ground, and like it's a real frustration to watch, but like it's frustrating for players as well, because it's not really an error, it's more of just
there were a couple of scrums as well where the Lions had a dominance, they were dominant and they weren't called, the penalties weren't coming as well, and that's just got to do with making sure that the game is even for both sides. And I understand to a degree why the referee didn't want to call the penalties, because he did start to do it. But sometimes you're looking at the game, and if you're relying, and I said this before, if you're going to rely to get your scrums, you can never ever rely on a referee to give you scrums at penalties at scrums, and you set plays to get penalties, because you're walking a fine line, and yeah.
And just going backwards isn't enough either. Like the referee needs to be sure in this day and age that he sees a penalty. And I think to his credit, John Ryan just went up. I think he knew, if I go up, Adam Jones is less likely to penalise me for collapsing. Well, obviously, because it's the other direction. But I think he kind of played the cute card there and got away with it.
Yeah, the referees are coached that if the ball's at the number 8's feet, play on. That's just the way that they're coached at the moment. Which is, I know, annoys a lot of South Africans, because they more often than not have the scrum dominance, and it's essentially robbing one of their advantages. But it's the same every game. It's the same every game. Talking of teams that let other teams back into it, Ben, we need to have a discussion, right?
We do.
You and I have had this exchange of, this is not the English Premiership. We do not do silly scorelines in the URC. This is proper rugby. So explain yourself. what happened in the Scotland Italian Shield on whatever night it was.
It's
Not
Scottalia. Apparently,
Yes,
it's
Scottalia.
Scottalia.
Scotland with this 80. How many points was it in the end?
80 to 83, 12 tries.
Shocking.
Well,
What's
the
going
weather
on?
had
35 nil up. Everyone's drafting Sean Everett apology letters, and then
I hadn't. I was a
40
bit more
minutes
prescient.
later.
I think I was a bit more
I'm a
prescient about
committed
the
hater.
weather conditions than others were, but no, as objective as I can
Right,
be.
you said because you said in the chat, oh, the wind. So when I checked out the highlights, I was expecting it to be like horrendous. It was fine.
It was 40-mile-an-hour gales. 40 miles an hour. The thing is, I don't know. Murrayfield is quite close in, but the structure of the Hive Stadium it lends to itself to bad weather, and it happened in April. We had Bayonne at home on the Saturday night, and it got moved to Murrayfield because the weather was that bad. It was a 65, 70-mile-an-hour gale that night, but the Hive is so open the way the stand is because everything's really low. It's single tiered, maybe 10, 15 rows from front to back. So I think it's always going to be exposed to wind. And last night was one of those occasions where it was so windy, and you could see it from Umaga trying to box kick in the first half of Benetton that it was just coming back on him, and it was really, really hard to exit. And the difference came down to we managed to score a couple of tries going into the wind in the second half. Otherwise, it would have been a draw. It was a bizarre game because we flew out the traps with 28 points within 25 minutes. I think Van der Merwe, Paul Hill,
Yeah, we've
Manchester,
given
Bradbury.
Big Doohan some stick on this pod. We have to, if you look at all his numbers are amazing. I completely
Yeah.
hear everything that you said about him in terms of fading in and out of games, considering the place he's supposed to be. But if you look at the stats, he is delivering according to the stats.
No, I agree. I think it's just that he has though. But after his try yesterday, he didn't do an awful lot for the next 78 minutes, really. I mean, it felt like he wasn't really in the game. It was very attritional, and the game was very narrow. And the game was particularly narrow in the second half when Benetton scored. All their 5 tries kind of came off 5 meter rucks and off the line out. And my major criticism of Edinburgh at the moment is, although we did let them back into the game, the weather obviously had an impact on that. But the soft shoulders for both previous tries. And
It is cool that
it is a cool
Creevy
and
plays for Benetton, though.
Yeah.
That is a vibe.
Well, he'll come in on at half time, and he brought Benetton back into it because he's got that savviness, that 39-year-old kind of experience of playing all around the world now, hasn't he? He's played in 3 or 4 different domestic competitions, 130 caps for Argentina.
Played in all the main ones, hasn't he? Am I right?
I think he has, yeah. He's definitely been top 14 URC Gallagher Premiership. I don't know about Super Rugby, but
Did he ever play for the Jaguares?
Yeah, he would have played in Super Rugby.
So he would have played. So he has played in all 4. So yeah, but we flew out the traps, and I was happy to see that because we needed to. And the main thing is we did get a bonus point win and Benetton came away with nothing. And despite the score, we got what we wanted out of the game. It was messy. Umaga and Fekitoa didn't have a clue about how to play with the weather last night, and I think that contributed to Benetton's downfall. Is that they just gave themselves a little bit too much to do in the second half.
No excuse for that, really. Both of them have played in the UK long enough.
Yeah, Umaga was particularly poor actually. Quite a lot of misplaced passes at the back. Yeah, I think they look shell shocked. I think missing Brex and Menoncello and Negri is always going to affect them. So it was one of those games where
I don't cut Benetton any excuses. They should be better than this. They've got plenty of money. Their squad is amazing. You talk about being basically a national side. I've said before, you could say that Benetton's team is better than Italy's. Their overall squad is stronger than the Italian national squad.
Well, based on Rhino Smith, and Umaga and Fekitoa.
35-0 down at half time. What? That's unbelievable.
They just
should be better.
But the tries we scored different types of tries. Obviously, the Duhan score in the corner. Paul Hill came off a really strange line out. Paul Hill's try, who was his first try for Edinburgh as a loose head, wasn't he? Tight head number 3, and he just trotted through. And Benetton it was like parting of the waves. Like they just didn't even try to put a tackle on him.
Was that the one with the line out?
Yeah, it went awry. It was an Edinburgh line out. It was a second line out, and it just went awry. And it bounced off, and then Ali Price ripped it off the Benetton back, who was going into contact, and then Paul Hill just managed to pop it up and just ran through, and it's just like, hang on, how's he got through here? And it's a good 25-30 meter run, and he was well outside the 22 when he picked the ball up. I think it's one of the most bizarre games of rugby I've seen in recent history. I think in terms of the structure it took, in that it wasn't really structured at all.
Yeah.
I think we just
What
managed the conditions better as the home side. I think that was probably what gave us the W
Yeah, what you were
overall.
saying about the tries coming from different places. I mean, if you look at Edinburgh's stats, 10 clean breaks, 35 defenders beaten, compared to Benetton's 3 clean breaks, 16 defenders beaten. So
Hmm.
that kind of says to your point of Benetton's tries were just kind of
Base of the
up,
rock.
yeah, up the
Yeah,
jumper type stuff, not anything
exactly.
flashy, which so yeah, so Sean Everett's still very much on fraud watch then.
He's on forward watch, and I just think what's going to define our season is the 1872 Cup games because they're the next 2 games we've got. I don't, yeah, I know we'll get to the European games later on, but I don't want to see us sending a big team down to Gloucester next Friday. I don't see the point. I think it's, Darcy and Duran have played 4 or 5 games in a row. Obviously, Darcy missed 1 game, Duran missed another, so they've had 4 out of 5 weeks when they've been playing. We had to get the big guns back last night because we had to get a win, and I think some of those players may not have wanted to play last night, or the SOU may not have wanted to have played either, but they had to play. So like Grant Gilchrist started, played the whole game. Duhan played 70 minutes. Darcy played 80 minutes. Darcy was fantastic last night. His sniping run. He's unlucky not to get a couple of tries. There's a couple of fantastic line breaks he made, particularly the one Fanny Price was trying in the second half, and there was one very late on where Ben Healy just kicked a penalty just to get the 50 points because no point going for a try at that point. It was just making sure we kept Benetton from +7, and there was no chance of a restart. So yeah, it was good. It was good, but it's hard to put a lot of thought about one game when it transpired the way it did because the weather conditions was the weather conditions to define the game last night. It was that windy that
Mm.
I'm gonna have to think long and hard about because my worry when we play Glasgow is our centre pairing against their centre pairing. If they're playing Sony Tupulotu and Hugh Jones against our centre pairings, they're going to get steamrolled, absolutely steamrolled. Because last night Matt Curry, okay, Mosasi Tupulotu, he hasn't done anything yet. He's not hitting the stats. He's not scored a try. I haven't seen many line breaks from him. I haven't seen many dominant tackles, and I'm a little bit worried about him. I'd be interested to see if I was Sean Everett, I wouldn't be playing him in either game against his brother. I think he'll get overwhelmed by the occasion, and I think I'd go back to Matt Scott and Matt Curry, or James Lang if he's fit with Matt Curry with Matt Scott on the outside of him because we need some experience back there. Not sure what happened to Matt Scott. Don't know why he wasn't in the 23 yesterday. I looked for the injury line. I didn't see him having an injury. Sam Skinner came back last night, which is a plus for us. He's been out for a very long time. I think probably since the back end of the Six Nations. Freddie Douglas made his second debut for club after debut for country first, which doesn't happen very often, but he looked good last night, and his first contribution was a jackal. Jamie Ritchie was outstanding, just kind of where he left off against the Wallabies, he continued with last night. He was just jackling for fun, and it's nice to see him have that confidence back and that level of leadership because a lot of the responsibility has been taken away from him over the past few years. Obviously, lost the Scottish captaincy, isn't the Edinburgh captain at the moment, but he was just a mature performance that just remind me how he was 2 or 3 years ago. I think he's kind of getting that razzmatazz back at going for the tackles, and I think it was 2 or 3 turnovers he won yesterday, which were pretty pivotal. But
Mm.
my main concern is centre pair, and doesn't seem to be doing an awful lot. And I mean, I'm trying to think of a centre that scored a try in the last few weeks because no centre tries yesterday. It was bad last year as well. The centre pairing, whether it was Curry, Lang, and Bennett, all 3 of them didn't score many tries last year at all. And yeah, the soft shoulders off the 5 metre line. There were too many tries conceded yesterday where it was either a mismatch or the guard was missing, or it was just they tackled too high. You've got to get lower. You've got to give the opportunity to hold up over the line because even though it was windy last night, I'd rather have a
There was
22
there was
dropout
one that Benetton
or goal
scored
line
where
dropout.
you were defending on the goal line and everyone shot out, but it was one of those classic cases of you shot out but with no intent. So
Yeah,
everyone's gone boom, shot out because that's what the
no man.
system
Then you're all
is.
in no man's land. Yeah,
Yeah, and then everyone goes, "Oh, now what?" And the Benetton guy just waited for them to shoot out and then just went behind them and scored. Kaylin,
well,
you were not you. Sorry, Kaylin, you were nodding away with the Benetton chat. Um, they're on fraud watch. Their season's as good as over, isn't it?
I was worried as to which part I was nodding away at in case had misheard you or something. No, because it's funny. To give him his dues, David Lawrence of Scrum of the Earth, who you've been on his pod a good few times. I was on there today. We talked about this. Like, it just feels like the season is already gone from Benetton, unfortunately. And I don't like saying that, but I just think unless they get 2 comprehensive wins over Zebre and have their best ever run through February, March, January, February, March, when they have those, when they're without their internationals, it's hard to see it, unfortunately, which is a pity because I think nearly all of us tipped them to be top 8, if not mainly.
Yeah,
top
I picked them for
I
top
think we
6.
did, yeah.
So like it's really disappointing, but it just hasn't got going. And as you said, there is an element of neither did Italy. You know, I mean, we'll get onto that at another date. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say fraud watch. I just think they've taken a step back at the wrong time. I think
Sean
took a
Everett,
dip in form.
Benetton.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, Sean Everett is king of fraud watch at this stage, along with a couple of
But at
really-
least it'll leave a space for a Welsh team to get in. There you go, in the top
you need
8.
to have expectations to get in.
No,
Although the
Scarlets are winning the
Ospreys,
league this
when we
year.
get onto it,
Well, no, we'll get onto it now because someone at the FIR has got a very, very uncomfortable conversation coming for them on Monday morning. So we alluded to it in previous pods. Zebre have been put up for sale. So this is reported in the Italian press. We've spoken to some of the guys from the Italian Rugby podcast, great guys. And Zebre are up for sale. So it was rumored earlier in the season that basically the FIR, which is the Italian Rugby Union, foot the bill for everything that's Zebre related, and they're sick of spending all this money in Zebre going nowhere. But unfortunately, now Zebre and Benetton have got 2 wins each from 7 games. And Benetton are very much the golden child that is supposed to be there to compete, and Zebre is there to be the development team. And now, like I said, they've got 2 wins each. So that's an uncomfortable conversation. So just for people who are new to the news about Zebre being sold, like I said, it's because they're they're running out of patience. I think Zebre have been bottom of the league, I think, every year since they've joined, if not most. The kind of history of Zebre is that they don't have a ton of heritage. A team they're kind of been artificially made in Parma, kind of a new franchise. Zebre weren't the original Italian team in the Celtic League. There was a team called Ironi that was in. They got rid of and replaced with Zebre. So this isn't unprecedented. So this will be the second time an Italian team has been replaced. It's not a case of they're going bust or they're going into administration. It looks like someone else in Italy will buy that URC spot, and people in Italy feel that it will be rebranded. So it may move to Northern Italy, it may move to somewhere like Rome or Milan, and it'll be a new Italian team that goes in it. So
where do we boys think it should go? Where would be the ideal market?
Rome.
Turin or Rome? Rome.
It would be that ideally, but it's going to be Verona, isn't it? More than likely, it's going to be up north. Ideally, because
the money's up north,
it'll be Milan.
Yeah,
but it's not going to be. It looks like it'll be Verona. But I think, look, there's people more qualified to talk about this than us, and I do understand that. And I'd love to have the lads for Fratelli on, if even for just 15 minutes some night, just to discuss it. But you have to give the FIR the credit that, like, they made this move with Ironi. Ironi were in much worse position than any position Zebre have ever been in, realistically. And they pulled the plug at the right time, and they kind of rebranded. And to be fair, I think the Zebre rebrand has worked to a degree, and Parma has got behind them. But I give them the benefit insofar as I do think there's an opportunity that they can, if they go back to the drawing board and they get a little bit more money in, because Zebre aren't the most cash rich in the league, that they could do something. Because look at the under 20 teams that are feeding Zebre.
yeah.
Like, they're very, very strong. I think now could be a good time to do it, just as the under 20s are starting to really pick up.
And it's not as if the FIR are going to be fishing around for a buyer. There will be multiple bidders for this,
for sure.
for this spot. There's some like a Revigo who think they should be in the URC anyway. So it will come up. It's interesting. But second win of the season, obviously they got the shock result over Munster. This result over the Ospreys, less of a shock. So my stat for you is that each time the last of the Welsh regions have visited Zebre, Scarlets won. Dragons lost in the Challenge Cup last year. Cardiff drew, and now Ospreys have lost. So it's not that big of a shock. Ospreys, like I said, traditionally send a B team to Zebre, although they went a lot stronger than I was expecting for this game. They named a much stronger team. They rested the likes of Derry Lake and Jack Morgan, but Owen Watkin was in there. You got Justin Tipperick, Morgan Morris was in there. So it wasn't that much of a B team. But just Yeah, full credit to Zebre. Their first try I thought was very good. There was a lovely pullback and it went through a lot of sets of hands. Let's see if I can find it. But yeah, obviously whenever here it is. Whenever a team loses to Zebre, it's a shock. I'm just
I
going to
feel like
show
this less
this.
so though. I do agree with you because I looked at that Ospreys team and I thought I didn't think, oh my god, like they're gonna lose, but like it didn't strike me as a team who were gonna go to Zebra and get a big win either. Do you know? And like without putting it all on the two guys, but like Jack Morgan and Dowie Lake are level raisers on that team.
This pullback's nice. There you go. That's what makes this try.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're level. They're head and shoulders the best. But there's going to be a video coming out on the Rap YouTube channel this week about the Ospreys attack because it is quite interesting and there's a lot of stuff that they're doing that's really quite advanced. But I worry that they don't use the right tools for the right jobs. So if you look at the thing that's best about Jack Morgan and Dewey Lake is their carrying. They're the two best ball carriers in Wales. The Ospreys don't use them as ball carriers very much. So the Ospreys expect their front rowers to distribute, standing at first receiver. So you'll see Dewey Lake pass the ball a lot, and you'll see Jack Morgan play as an edge forward, which is great if you pass the ball to the wing, which the Ospreys don't very much. They play with the least width of anyone in the URC, and that's just that's not a hyperbole. That's statistically, if you look on analyst.com, that's the facts of it. So the Ospreys just need to change the record. You know, if you look at the stats for the game, there's nothing in it that jumps out to you of going, that's what went wrong. There's nothing in it that you go, oh, they gave away tons of penalties. They gave away tons of turnovers lost. You know, they had the majority of their possession was in Zebra's 22. But if you look at who their carriers are, I think their entire three quarters, so the centers, the wingers, and the fullbacks, all got double figure carries, but they're getting like 30 meters each. So you would expect like a fullback with 11, 12 carries to be getting well north of 50 meters, maybe even 80, 90 meters. But Jack Walsh got 30. And that's not because of Jack Walsh, that's because the attacking system is using him in a situation where he's working with limited space and he's not attacking from deep. It's all really, really flat and a lot of distribution. And the Ospreys just need to change the record, man, because the good vibes from last season have gone really quickly. You know, it started with Toby Booth announcing that he's leaving, and now they're 2 from 7, and they've had some really poor results, like getting nilled in Munster, losing away to the Dragons, and now losing away to Zebre.
Can I just ask a question quickly about that, what you've just said? How different is their game plan? You got to excuse me. I'm not. I don't keep up to tabs with the Ospreys like you guys do. I know they were the best performing Welsh team last season. What are they doing so differently? Has the game plan changed that much from last season?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's changed that much, and I think that might be the problem. So they didn't sign many players. They lost George North, and so it's a bit. I think they've stood still, I think is the issue. And there was a lot of close games last year that they won. They had a favourable fixture list last season, so they've had harder fixtures this season. And so they haven't been able to get any momentum. And obviously with Toby Booth going, I think that must have had an effect. I've spoken to someone today who suggested that the coach leaving has a very material effect when you know that they're
The
leaving.
logic of that just seems more flawed by week, doesn't it? I just don't understand it. I think we said this, like when it was announced. Was it before the first game of the season or as close to the first game of the season as possible? And I just don't understand why you do that. Like, if you've just signed that somewhere, I know Ospreys didn't sign many people. There would be other, players coming through and they find out the manager. They look like, well, who am I here to impress? What's the point? And although it might
Yeah.
be subconscious and subliminal or subtle, you will take that yard off. You will maybe not go as hard in training through the week. You might not be that bothered during the winter months when it's freezing cold and wet and windy. It's things like that. So I
Well,
just
but there's
don't
a
really
Lions
understand the
tour
logic.
coming up. I mean, surely you would expect the players to genuinely try and raise their game regardless.
But what about the
Specifically
players that
because it's a
are
Lions
not
tour.
Lions? But what if there's going to be players that aren't Lions caliber that are sort of like hovering around the first team, and it's just
Like there's
I
only
don't know.
3 Lions potential players in the Osprey squad, isn't there?
Well, I
Lake
mean, I'm
being the
not talking. I
more.
mean, but surely they all want to make. They'll be aware of that. I mean, there must be players in that squad that are thinking
I
it.
I'm not going to suggest players are half. I like, consciously saying I'm not going to play or train as hard because the coach is leaving. But I think if you look at the human condition, as soon as you realise your boss is going, you're going to, subconsciously take your foot off the pedal. I think a little bit. I
It's
think
the
that's
other way
inevitable.
around as well. It's the other way around with Toby Booth of how much is he putting in because he's already said that he hopes
True,
the Ospreys
true.
let him go
Yeah.
mid-season.
And
So
I mean, that
is
doesn't
he in the
that
middle
that will
of
get the alarm bells ringing as well. I think.
is he in the middle of handing over the reins on field Monday to Friday to the other coaches? Because if
yeah,
because
so
like that's an
Mark Jones
important
is
factor as well.
stepping up, so he's already there. So you would think that
He's probably running the week.
he's probably running it, but Toby Booth is still like the face of it, if you like, and he's
Yeah.
still
Like
taking.
Logan Roy and his 4 children battling for the top spot, isn't it?
Yeah, so the vibes have gone pretty bad, and obviously Welsh rugby is pretty toxic at the moment, and there's chat about several people have come out in the media of cutting a region. Like this time last year, it was Anglo-Welsh League. Well, this time every 6 months, it's Anglo-Welsh League. This month, it's cutting a region, which a lot of
Sam
people.
Warburton has had a go this week, and a proper
Yeah,
go.
it's Sam.
Can I just jump in there? If anyone wants to hear Hugh's actual thoughts, we're going to do a Patreon podcast where Hugh just gives out about the media faces who go on about this.
That's not true. But yeah. So and a lot of the people who have come out and said that Wales should cut a region are from Cardiff and the Scarlets, who, without getting too deep into the history of regional rugby in Wales, are the two like pre-regional clubs that have basically survived as not being regions, basically. So when those people are saying we should cut a region, they don't mean Cardiff or the Scarlets. So they mean one of the other two. And so there's a lot of Ospreys fans feeling quite sensitive about that because they're at the moment like they're playing poorly. The Ospreys are the region that went hardest into being a region as we are a new thing, but they've since fallen out with one of their sort of, I don't know what you'd even call it, heritage clubs of Neath. The reason that Ospreys play in black is because of Neath. They essentially don't have a relationship with Neath anymore. Um, and they're being bounced between grounds between Bridgend, which is technically closer to Cardiff than it is to Swansea. And it's just, yeah, like I said, they need to change the record because a lot of people at the Ospreys have worked really, really hard into making it positive. There's the whole entertainment business thing. They've got the best social media of any of the Welsh regions, and it's surprising at how quickly it's been undone, really. So yeah. Anyway, congratulations to Zebre. Um, Next game then, Alan, bringing you back in before we do our plugging and our breaks and things. The first of three derbies this week was Sharks versus the Stormers in a definitely not sold out Kings Park.
No,
Um,
I did think
despite
that when you mentioned, I was like, I don't know if that happens in a holiday, it's holiday
yeah.
South
So,
Africa.
what did you make of this game then? Not as high scoring as I was expecting.
No, I mean, and I'm going to be quite, it's going to sound like I'm criticizing here, but this is a very disappointing game for both sides. I think I expect, and Sharks fans would expect much more from that team. If you look at the actual statistics in the game, they're pretty close, considering the amount of Springboks you've got running around on the field and the amount of errors and turnovers that you have given away. The Sharks raced into a lead. They looked pretty comfortable. Andre Esterhuizen and Sia Khaleesi looked really good. Their forwards were amazing. It looked pretty
Khaleesi's looked
comfortable
good
up
this
to a
season.
point.
It's the best he's played. It's possibly the best I've seen Khaleesi play over the last
Yeah.
month or so.
And then Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu, we were also awesome to see him back. Had a slotted a drop goal, and then he went off injured again. So they need to start like looking at this. We don't want this to be another Pat Lambie situation where he is constantly injured and we're having to rely on an Elton Yankees type of situation where we're relying on our backup fly halves to do really well here. If you look at the statistics as Hugh's scrolling up, pretty even, and it shouldn't have been this close. The way the Sharks came out of the blocks,
Good territory, yeah. Wow.
yeah, it makes it look like it was a really, really close game, and it shouldn't have been. I think Ben Jason Dixon was the best player on the pitch from my point of view. I think he tried really hard. He was going at contact. I think he was making his tackles. I think I felt really sorry for him at one point. He was going all out. I think as expected, I think the Sharks dominated the scrums early on. Marnie Libok came on. He did some amazing things, and then he proceeded to make a few errors, which are what he became known for. The few players I want to specifically pick out from the Stormers' point of view, one of them is Marnie Libok with that exact point. If you look at the amount of turnovers that the Stormers were responsible for, I've got turnovers lost. Marnie Libok lost 4, Herschel Jantjies lost 4, and Warwick Gelant lost 3. Now, I don't know if anybody of you
That's his
watched
scrum
this
half,
game.
fly half, and fullback.
Your back,
Yes.
fullback, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Warwick Gelant must have got the ball 5 times in an attacking position. And I'm pretty sure he must have kicked it at least every single time he got the ball. It doesn't matter what point in the game they were. It doesn't matter what the score was. He was getting the ball and he was kicking it. So that's the first criticism I have of him. If he's going to play this game with the Stormers, that they've got this free-flowing rugby, you can't keep kicking the ball away. That doesn't lend itself to creativity. Rubber kicks which are getting caught, getting intercepted, and getting kicked straight back over their heads. So that's the first thing. The second thing was when he got the ball in the first half, the goal line was clear in front of him. He just had to catch the ball and he had to pass it. And he caught the ball and then fumbled it. At that point, they needed to score. They really needed to score at that point. So I think he needs to go away, and I think he needs to work on his attacking play and maybe just focus a bit more on being a fullback, because it looks like he's playing in the centres and his handling is atrocious. Marnie Libok was really good when he came on. We all know that these guys are going to miss a few little kicks here and there. I think Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu missed a kick as well, so I'm not going to criticize him on that. They got, in the last play in the game, they got a penalty try from being structured, and the Sharks fouled on the line, and a penalty try was given to the Stormers. So in the 80th minute, there was a kick-off. And if anybody hasn't seen this game, go back and look at the last minute of the game.
I've seen the last minute and a half. Yeah.
Okay, so the Stormers get the ball. They proceed to run all the way up to the other side of the pitch to get the Sharks. And I said to my wife in this game as well, I said, you got to keep your eye on this game, because the Stormers have 8 points, which means if they score 2 converted tries, they're going to win this game by a point. And a team like the Sharks, and this is a criticism of the Bulls as well, they do not close games out. The Sharks could have really done with a bonus point win here, and they didn't do it. They stepped off, they stood off on their tackles and stuff, and then the Stormers got all the way to the other end of the pitch. Marnie Libok scored what looked like an amazing try, and it was brought back for a knock-on. And if you look at the actual...
Minute knock-on as well, wasn't it?
Minute. If you look at the actual offence itself, when he ran up to the ball, it's almost as if there was someone else interfering with his hands and stuff. But when you're going into that position, you have to keep your eye on the ball. With the amount of hands, the amount of hands that are around the ruck and around the ball, you have to keep your eye on the ball. That would have been a watershed moment for Marnie Libok if that game had gone the Stormers' way. It would have been a real game changer in the season. As it is, he's still that almost man, and it's really unfortunate for him, because I want him to do really well. We all want him to do well, but it just seems as if when those big moments are there, they're just not up to it at the moment, the Stormers, and I'm not quite sure what they're going to do to turn it around. And I fully expect the Lions in our next game against them in Cape Town to beat them, playing a structured game. That's what I'm expecting the Lions to do when they go to Cape Town. That's going to be an absolutely huge game for both those teams. The Stormers can't afford to lose another game like that.
Yeah. From a Sharks point of view, do you think it was a bit of a come down, because they brought most of their Springboks back in, who've just come back from the Northern Tour off the back of a long international season as well? Do you think that they got into the lead and they were going, it wasn't emotionally there for them?
I think there was probably an element of fatigue. I do think there might have been. I mean, Andre Esterhuizen looked pretty good. I think he didn't look too tired. Fussy was amazing. So I'm really thrilled that he's back and that he's playing the way he was playing, because I think he had a few injury layoffs over the last couple of years. So that's really good for him. But I really do think that the Storm, I was surprised all the Springboks came straight back into the team. So, maybe there was an element of fatigue that was there, but then they need to manage the bench better, which is also full of Springboks. So, trying the players that got injured and that went off pretty early doors. So Sasha Feinberg went off, Vincent Koch went off pretty early doors. So They got to look after these players, if you want them to play extended careers. Because a lot of rugby for South African teams to be playing, and it's not normally, well, traditionally, it's not a summer sport for us. So, they do need to manage these players.
Yeah, yeah. A player that I want to pick out is Afalele Fassi. Just every time he's pulled on a Sharks jersey in the last year, it feels like he's been absolutely sensational.
Mm.
And I do want to say I completely hear everything that you're saying about the final play of the game, but I do think that Zas was offside for his try, and the referee. I think on the pitch, I didn't see it, but someone explained it to me. The referee said he's clearly offside, so I'm going to overrule it. And was it Marius Younger, the TMO, went no, allow it, and
No clear, what do you call it? No clear evidence. But
He was
in
clearly
those
offside, in my opinion.
situations, I suppose maybe from the Super Rugby days, I'm just like, oh, it makes a better game. Nobody wants to see a team win 21-0 or whatever it is. None of us want to see that. And the fact that it's a derby in the holiday season in South Africa in the middle of summer, you want to see a good game. So give him that one. I mean, I don't support either one of these teams. So for this purposes, as a neutral, put that in inverted commas. I mean, yeah, fine, give them the try. But I mean, very frustrating at the end because I was watching that game up until the last minute, expecting the Sharks or the Stormers to do something to keep me engaged. My wife was watching the game. She's a Stormers fan. And she was saying, oh, this is over. And I went, no.
Was she talking about the game or your relationships?
I remember last year at the World
Sorry, I
Cup
couldn't resist that.
when
You're like,
Wales
"Nope,
were
it's
playing
not."
Australia. When Wales were playing Australia, we were something like 35-6 up with 5 minutes to go. And my girlfriend walked in and went, "Oh, Wales have won this then." And I was like, "No."
How was that? Was that in the Principality?
No, it was in the World Cup.
Oh, okay. Well, there was a game at the Principality that the same thing happened as well. Wales were
Yeah,
leading in
yeah.
Australia.
We were 3 scores up. We were 3 scores up with 20 minutes to go and lost.
Yeah.
International rugby. But anyway,
Well, we were 2 scores up against you in 2010,
2010.
and
Yeah,
and
2
we
men sent
lost.
off. Shane
What a
Williams
game.
under the posts.
Yeah.
Lee Halfpenny.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on to the next game, just a reminder, if you are enjoying what you're seeing so far, please give the channel a like and subscribe. It's been going really well. We're really thrilled with how well this podcast is going. So if you'd like to hop on board and get on the hype train with us, and if you're listening on the audio version, if you could give us a 5-star review, really, really helps, and share a link with a friend. There's not that many URC podcasts around where all teams get spoken about. There's a few where specialist Irish or specialist Welsh or specialist South African. We're the only ones who talk about everyone. So if you like that, share us with a friend and help us grow the pod. Really appreciate it.
And I appreciate your grammar tips as well. So thanks for that, all our subscribers.
Alan loves going to the comments on a Monday lunchtime and getting
He's an
angry and sending
instigator.
firing off replies.
I'm not
He's an
instigating.
aggravator.
I'm
Yes, you
commenting.
are.
I'm
You're an
commenting.
instigator. Someone will type, "Oh, that Kalen is such a provincial idiot," and Alan will go, "Yeah, he is, isn't he?" In the replies.
Alan instigates, the rest of us
No one
mitigate.
gets
That's
it.
the way I look at it.
No. I have to stand up front. Alan gets it. He understands how the
game.
algorithms work. He gets it. Honestly.
Controversy
why he gets paid more than
equals
the rest of us.
clicks and views.
All right then. So next up then, Colin, Ulster versus Leinster. You
Yes.
called it because we all said on the pod last week, Ulster will win this, and you went, they'll lose then. If everybody thinks Ulster will win, that's always when they lose, and they did lose.
Yep.
What went wrong?
What went wrong? What went wrong was I didn't get to see it and I didn't get to support them. Look, I think this is an Ulster team that's just starting to feel the effects of their injuries. I looked at that Leinster team and I thought, do you know what? I don't think Ulster be too scared of them. But then in hindsight, you look at the Ulster team and go, yeah, but to be fair, it's not a scary Ulster team. Just to kind of nitpick here. So Eric O'Sullivan, James McCormick, Scott Wilson, Martin Moore has retired. They were without Tom O'Toole, Rob Herring, and Tom Stewart played his first game of the season from the bench. Ian Henderson was away with Ireland. Cormac Izuchukwu was also away with Ireland, and Nick Timoney had been in Ireland camp for the last month, but hadn't got any game minutes. And out wide, Jacob Stockdale has been injured. James Hume was on the long-term injury list. Stuart McCluskey is out. That's the bones of a starting team. And it's only when you look at it from that angle. And I know Leinster can say the same thing, right? I understand that. But I think for Ulster, McCluskey, Henderson, and Herring are the three most important guys in the weeks like these. because they are typically the guys that just, again, to use that term, level raisers. Leinster did still have them. They did still have Jamie O'Brien in there. They did still have Ross Byrne, Jack Conan, Orgus Neyman on the bench. And, Rabbi Slimani is a very experienced player as well. So in hindsight, it does make a lot of sense. This was quite a depleted Ulster pack. I think if Ulster are full strength, I still think they probably get the job done. Now, from a Leinster perspective, it's kind of the same as what we discussed over the first 6 rounds. Were they perfect? No. Did they do enough? Yes. That's absolutely fine. I think Leinster did get a little bit lucky because it was obviously that Brian Deane incident.
It was a red card, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Can we all agree
Alan
on
puts
that?
in the group chat, there's been a murder.
There's been a murder in the building.
A murder death kill.
It was a bad one, though,
I'm
wasn't it?
tired.
To
I
be
don't have
fair.
time for this.
Oh, I
like,
thought you were referring to Conan first because he went in a little bit high, and then it was the
Yeah.
next one by Deeney, wasn't it? It was
both
both of them.
I
Was
thought the
both of them
Conan
could have
one was
been.
worse.
They didn't even look at
No.
the first one, and I was
No.
like, "What?"
I think he could have seen 2 cards there, if not
Yeah.
2 reds, but 2 cards. But look, like that Leinster team are. I don't even think they're trending. I think they're just doing enough and sorting out their issues as they go along, and kind of, like, they're still the same teams they were last year. But I think
It makes me like
that's
them
my
even less. The fact that they're 7 from 7 playing like this, I really don't like it.
34 points from 35. Like it's nothing to be sniffed at. I'm not trying to disparage them. Like, obviously, the only reason I
instead.
seem critical, and the only reason I seem critical about Leinster is just because they should be held to a higher standard. Like, they're the richest team in the league. They've got the most internationals. Like, you can't.
By the way, on the Greenfly, which is where we can get all the official URC photos from, Geordie Barrett didn't play in this game, but from the official photos
You would
that
think
went
he
around,
I
did.
think he
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
was man the match. I know.
Geordie
He was
Barrett
everywhere, wasn't he?
wore Rolex, and I've been told about it like 5 times. I'm like, lads, yes, he's Geordie Barrett. Like, fuck's sake. The man could buy fucking 7 Rolexes. Like, you know what I mean? He wasn't. I know they're not on big money in New Zealand, but they're not on minimum wage either. Like, but
Yeah, he was in the
Um,
warm-up, and I think he was awarded man of the match.
yeah, probably.
During the
Craig
warm-up,
Gillow
didn't
is
even
a
let the game
competition.
play. There's no point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's disappointing for Ulster because I think they're starting to get to a sense now where if the injuries don't heal up, and it's not all long-term injuries. Like, there's some lads ready to come back in, but could just start slipping away. I think for a lot of teams, and Ulster are one of them, Munster are another, and Leinster to a degree as well. Europe is just coming at the right time because it'll give you a chance to kind of look at your squad and be like, right, do we go 2 games fully at it without a little bit of pressure? Do we rotate our squad? Do we mix things up? Like, what way do you go at it? Benetton are probably another one, actually, who we mentioned earlier. So I think for Ulster, it's coming at the right time. They've to lose away. Like, I'd be sending the Espoirs to use that phrase. Like, I don't think you need to target that game. Target the other 3. They got Bordeaux at home. They got Leicester and Exeter. Ulster can win 3 games in that pool, but we'll get to that in a minute. For Leinster, they are going in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. I am fascinated to see how next week goes for Leinster. I won't be able to see it, but like, I have a sneaky feeling Cullen is going to go with Prendergast at 10 this week, but go with someone else against Claremont, because I don't think Leinster will. I think Leinster rotate against Bristol. I don't think they're putting out a full strength team, so I think it's really interesting to see how they go. And I know that's for later on, but like the team that plays the weekend beats Bristol. Like, if you put in like 3 or 4 internationals, I think that team beats Bristol. So that'll be interesting. Leinster in a really good position. Ulster, I still think Ulster make top 8, but
Agree.
I'd be sweating about Stockdale coming back in. And just finally, because I mentioned McCluskey and I mentioned Postthwaite and Hume, Ben Carson was really, really good. To give him his credit, like, he's still only young. I think someone said he's the same under 20 age group with James McNabney. He's 22. I actually don't remember him from that under 20 group, but they won a Grand Slam. And he looks like a really tidy player. He's physically strong as well. Like, he's pushing up on 100 kg at just 22, which is quite big for a young lad. Like, but yeah, Ulster, they just produce backs. Like, they produce backs better than anyone else in this country. It's unbelievable. So that's my beacon of positivity, and I think Leinster are in a very good position. So there'll be no that Kalon comments this week.
Yeah, it'll be that Ben for his horrible
I
comments.
don't
Well,
mind. Don't mind. I'm happy to go into battle against those
it'll be
fair weather
that Hugh
fans.
for wearing. Who is that? Because only the kids comment on YouTube. They won't know the guy.
We do
No,
appreciate all your comments, guys, so keep them coming.
Anyway, moving on to the next derby, final of the three derbies was Cardiff versus Dragons. So, of course, there'll be the whole wrap pod on this channel that you'll be able to catch, which is just the Welsh boys, and they'll cover it in much more detail. Alan, did you see this one all right for a Welsh game?
Yeah, it was all right for a Welsh game. That was pretty good. It was okay. I went as expected, I think. I think we all picked who was it again? Cardiff.
Yeah. 19 in a row they've got over the Dragons
Yeah, they
now.
looked pretty good. I
19.
think it was,
That's crazy, isn't it?
I think it was a pretty good game from them, and I think we all picked them on the Super Brew to win. So good to see Dragons come back at them a little bit, but it's normally too late at that point, isn't it? So
Yeah, Morgan Lloyd scored a really nice try. It's the kind of try that he'll be being picked. He'll be getting people off the back of that will be saying, "Oh, he should play for Wales because he scored a try." But it was a really, really nice try, and it's so Dragonsy. Like they started quite well, and you thought, "Ooh, they're kind of playing better here for the first half an hour," and they missed two relatively straightforward kicks at goal. They could have been 15-3, 15-6 up. And then Cardiff just kind of started playing, and then it really got away from them, and then the game got kind of loose in the final quarter. But after halftime, I think Cardiff got a try in the lead up to halftime, and then after halftime they got another couple of tries. There's a couple of daft yellow cards, and just a pretty typical Cardiff Dragons game. I thought the first half, the quality of the game in terms of the actual rugby that was played was quite poor. There was lots of stuff happening, so it was entertaining for a neutral or a casual viewer, but it wasn't the highest quality. And then I think just you saw the step above of Cardiff's squad. I think there's the quality of Cardiff's squad, I think, got the job done. And they're able to play the Cardiff way. Callum Sheedy's played a lot better in this game than he had played at the beginning of the year. And I think there are some Welsh international players who were glad to be back home and playing with a smile on their face as well. And Josh Adams was back, which is nice to see because I think he's one of Wales's world-class players. So that was good.
And Cardiff are currently fourth as well, which I
Currently
don't think
fourth.
anyone would probably have said at this stage of the season.
Well,
at
Harley,
all.
our friend and colleague Dr. Harley called it because they have had a good fixture list and they've had a lot
Yeah.
of games at home. So he
Yeah,
says
that's
that
true.
he thinks that
Have they had
Cardiff,
5 home games so far?
yeah, I think they've got one home game after Christmas. So
Yeah.
so they have most of their home games, although they still have loads of games in Wales, obviously, because of how the Shields
Yeah,
work.
of course. Yeah.
But yeah, so well done, Cardiff. If we want to get even more detail on that, listen to the wrap particular pod. That will be mostly a deep dive on that game. Next game, Glasgow Scarlets. So Ben, I'll let you go first. Glasgow getting the job done.
Yeah, there was definitely a hangover with. I think this just shows the discrepancy between Glasgow and Edinburgh in terms of who's now in that Scotland setup, and who Glasgow could afford to have on that pitch on a Friday night. Less than 5.5 days after a game against the Wallabies, where the vast majority of the Scotland team were Glasgow players. Obviously, there's no Tuilato, there's no Hugh Jones. Adam Hastings did play, but came off after 30 minutes. Looked like quite a bad head knock. Duncan Weir comes on, who's he's getting towards the end of his career. I think it's hard to say he's a second choice 10. He's probably a third choice 10 now. But Tom Jordan, I don't think was available either off the top. I know Tom Jordan started at 12. It was a bit of a ragtag of a game, and again, Glasgow lucky to get away with that because Johan Lloyd was quite unlucky, I think, with that very late penalty and that drop goal attempt. But I think the Scarlets will come away. I think they probably should have deserved to win.
Yeah,
that was my
I think
view
the
of it after highlights.
Yeah, I enjoyed this game as well. I watched it afterwards, and I actually thought Scarlets did really well. It was actually quite an entertaining game, I thought, for a Scottish team and a Welsh team to go at each other like that. I think was that. I'm serious now.
Yeah,
I thought it was a really good game, bearing in mind Glasgow were the champions, and
And I was cocky to suggest Glasgow win by 20 when I saw that team come out, and I was proven swiftly wrong. So I'm quite happy to take some humble pie on that.
I thought we were the better team. I thought we were the better team. I thought our pack dominated. Some people were saying, oh, because there was 3 hookers on the bench, Scarlets should have done better. And I was like, well, the pack wasn't the problem because our pack dominated. Verfafita was sensational. Plumtree, when he came off the bench, I've been saying on the Scarlets pod all year that they should start between Fafita and Plumtree. They should start one and bring the other on 50-60 minutes. And they did that for the first time this season in this game, and it worked amazingly. So there you go. I know what I'm on about. I thought we were the better team. The problems with the Scarlets they've had all season is 22 exits are just a disaster. And I think Glasgow gave us a real lesson on kicking to touch in terms of the meterage. We're just not getting enough meterage for our touch finders. It's really killing us. And discipline. I think we officially conceded 13 penalties, but I don't think that counts the number of advantages that we gave away. Because I think Glasgow scored both their tries when they were under advantage. And we'd be advantage and then another advantage and things. So
I think Johnny Matthews scored off the back of Hepburn going to the bin, didn't he, off the top of my head?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But the defense, so we conceded 0 clean breaks is the stat from this game. Scarlets conceded 0 clean breaks. And, away to the champions, we forced Glasgow to take a kick to poles. This has been a trend of the season that in the beginning of games, people are like, oh, it's only the Scarlets, and they kick to touch and try and maul it over. And then by the end of the game, they've ended up taking the 3. So it was the same with Connacht. It was the same with Benetton. It was the same with a few other games that we played as well. So, I'm happy from a Scarlet's performance point of view in terms of the effort. You could see what the game plan was. You could see the application that the players bought into that game plan and made it work. But you could go through the game and pick out 5 moments where we should have won. And so it's frustrating because, as I put in the group chat, it's because the narrative now is Scarlet's bottled it. And
Glasgow continue their home run because they've not lost at home for 20 games maybe now at least.
And the truth is that the Scarlets were the better team, and unfortunately, just only ever looks at the results. And so far this season, Scarlets 3 wins and a draw from 7. But if you look at the Connacht game and you look at that Glasgow game, 2 games we should have won, and could have won the draw against Benetton as well. So there's a not too parallel universe where we're 6 from 7, and that's
all
just
these
how
1%, isn't it? I think
that's just how it rolls. You put that down to it being a young team, I suppose. Anyway, last game then, Alan was touched on them. The Connacht Bulls, another game where the South African side threatened to let the opposition back into it.
Yeah, and another red card as well. I mean, I don't know if you're Jake White, I'm not sure what you do. I mean, these guys, it's silly, isn't it? It's petulant stuff that they're doing, giving away red cards. And then I think Kane Moody looked a bit sloppy in this game. I don't think he was up to his, I was expecting him. There was one, he made a break, and I think normally he'd be sprinting for the line, and he just kind of towed it ahead. So, but overall, I think the Bulls will be thrilled with the bonus point win in Connacht because South African teams do struggle there. Willie Leroux looked pretty good. I think the pack looked awesome. I think, but again, it's that whole situation again where they get into a lead that looks comfortable, and then other teams just start coming back, whether it's through good play or their own, and most of the times it's down to their own indiscipline, really. So I think the Bulls have got a little bit of work to do. Well, I've been saying this the whole season, really, with their discipline, but one of the, I suppose, highlights from a South African point of view to get a bonus point because there aren't many of those around for the South African teams at the moment, and especially in Ireland. So yeah, I'm sure they'll be happy with the win. It would have been nice to get a few more tries and see some of the a bit more free flowing rugby from the Bulls. But Connacht did well to come back into it. But when you go down a man that early on in the game, it makes it a bit harder, doesn't it? So yeah.
Like this minute, wasn't it? Very early red card.
Yeah, business-like from the Bulls, I'd call it.
Yeah.
And shout out to some of the Bulls players like Elric Lowe, who hasn't been back to South Africa, I think, since beginning of October.
And he's not going to be back for a while either, is he? So yeah.
Yeah. Caelan, Connacht.
Yes.
What's the revised expectations for Connacht this season?
I think a kind of 7 to 9 win mid-table. Because and I'm not trying to be overly harsh, but you look at who they've beaten, and it's essentially they've beaten the teams they should have beaten, and they lost the teams they probably should lose to. They bet the Dragons, they bet the Scarlets, and they bet the Sharks at home. At home is an important one there. So I feel like they're kind of on pace to be a kind of mid-table team. They seem to have tidied up their defense a tiny bit. I know they conceded 4 tries here, but there was 2 quite opportunistic tries conceded. Injuries are starting to hit them as well. Obviously Josh Ioane was out injured. Shane Bolton got injured again, which is very unfortunate. Finlay Bealham was absent, but I don't think he was missed, because I thought Ainger and Elo did well from what I seen. I should add, I was kind of scribbling down notes before the Munster match. Janssen will be missed. That'll be probably an automatic three game ban, I would assume. Maybe 2 if there's tackle skill involved.
What were the circumstances? Just
it was just an upright tackle, straight red, no complaints. I don't think he had any complaints himself. It was one of those. He just knew shoulders to head. Yeah.
Was that the elbow? Was that the elbow one, or
no? He was kind of just standing upright and just tucked in the arm like that. Well, from what I could see anyway, tucked in the arm like that. But
I feel like there was an element of elbow
there could have
in
been
there as well. I think they were saying he
point
went
to
his
the
shoulder, and
gouge
then
as
I think he
well.
bought.
That's your aftershave, isn't it, Ben? Element of elbow.
Is it?
God. Back to Connacht. I think
I went straight over my head. You're gonna have to explain that one to me.
I think they're trending towards mid-table at the moment. They could improve, don't get me wrong. And like we've said before, the scrap between like 5th and 12th is going to be, vicious. Like, you know what I mean? It really is. Like, you could easily finish, 7th as easily as you finish 11th or whatever. So they'll be in that fight, I feel like. But at the moment, I'm not too confident. They got Leinster in the RDS up next. They have a must-win against Ulster. And then it's Glasgow away to round out this kind of mini half block. So, they need one win. They need to beat Ulster at home. I think if they don't beat Ulster at home and they're sitting there at 3 wins from 11 or whatever it is, or 3 wins from 12, I think or 3 wins from 10.
Looks bad.
Yeah, it wouldn't look great then at that stage.
Goodness me. That brings us to the end of the URC games. So congratulations, everybody. For all the people who only care about the URC, you are for all the South Africans, you willing to...
Thanks.
No, you have to stay, Alan.
Enjoy it, and I'll see you later, mate.
Yeah,
Alan is well within his rights to leave if he wants to. Like, what is going on?
He's not.
No, the docile tones of Caelan will put me to sleep tonight. So there you go.
So I've had to listen to the Hugh talk about fucking aftershave. Shut up.
So Caelan,
what is element of elbow?
Something Alan said. So
Right.
Respecting the fact that both you and I have done a podcast about Ireland versus Australia separately already today, can we get the hits of what happened in Ireland versus Australia?
Considering neither of us listened to the other person's, we could have very different views on how this game went.
I know what your view is. Without even having to listen.
Yeah,
It's
my view is.
Craig Casey,
no, look.
Connor, what's his name? Jack Crowley saved the day.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, he didn't solely save the day. Like, I'm not going to come on here and say that. Like, obviously,
Tyburn was good as well, was he?
The bench impact in general was pretty good. It should be said. I thought Gus McCarthy was
he's the big winner of Ireland's autumn for me,
for sure. Gus McCarthy, Tom O'Toole, Ian Henderson, Peter Mahoney, Craig Casey, Jack Crowley were all excellent. Even Ringrose, I think Ringrose played well, but probably didn't look as good because Bundy had been playing really well for the hour before he came on. No, look, Ireland got out of jail. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's 3 wins from 4 from Ireland. It could have been 4 just as easily as it could have been 1. It's one of those autumns. Again, to use that point, I think Ireland are finally interesting again because there's a lot of debate around them and all that. Credit to Australia, their back row was excellent, particularly McGrath, Wilson, Valentini just popping up everywhere. Taniela Tupou made a massive break up the midfield and for some reason decided to throw the ball over his head, and I still can't get over it. It was so funny to watch. But Ireland did get out of jail here. Like, nothing really clicked. I think all the talk about the attack, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, maybe if we weren't standing 10 meters behind the gain line, maybe we wouldn't look as stale. And look, it looks compressed and it looks deep. And I'm like, I don't think that's what's working. Like, you've seen Australia did figure out very quickly. They figured out how to defend Ireland. I think they went in with one game plan and left it with the second one kind of thing. Like Ikitau and Salih eventually just sent pressure at Henshaw because they're like, right, Bundy might make a break, but Prendergast is not going to carry the first pod generally don't carry. So if we just go down that 13 channel, we can shut them down. And they did. And they did a very good job at it. Prendergast did well for what Sam Prendergast is. It's kind of like what you said last week. It's like, he wasn't brilliant. He was good for a 21-year-old. And again, this week, he was good for a 21-year-old in his third cap. Yeah, third cap. He wasn't what, like, the week gone by would make you think. Like, there's never, there's always a disparity between, like, what gets written and what a player
I can't
is.
get over the size of Johnny Sexton's shadow, over this team. Like,
And it's
Covers the whole of Dublin at the moment, I
he
think.
gets
Certainly the
mentioned
south side.
every third sentence
It's
about any.
ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I think he loves being mentioned as well. I think he
I
likes
actually
being the
don't
spectre.
think he does. I think he likes being involved more than he's letting on. I don't think Sexton wants to be mentioned in every conversation. Do you know what I mean? I'd like.
But why release a
he wants to
book
be
at the same
involved.
time? But why release a book at that time then if you don't want to be
This is the
mentioned?
thing. I don't know. Like, I don't think he should be back. Like, I discussed this with Lee at the start of the season. I don't think he should be back in there in the coaching capacity. It's too soon, and not as a consultancy thing. Like, that's letting the shadow hang over you type of thing from Andy Farrell.
Because that makes it look like they've gone, ooh, this is
Yeah.
going a bit bad. Better get Johnny back.
Yeah, which I don't think is the case. And I've said this, I think I said
It's
it
just how
last week.
looks.
I think the depth in Ireland is good. Just let the players play their way into it. Like,
Find their way.
let them find their own
path,
groove. And that's
Yeah.
not just at 10. Like, 10 is a good snapshot of it because obviously Kieran Frawley has that great moment in South Africa, gets 20 poor minutes against New Zealand, hasn't been seen since. Well, sorry, played against Fiji. But he didn't play against Argentina or Australia, which is unbelievably harsh. Jack Crowley didn't play great against New Zealand, but he only touched the ball 30 times, which for a 10 is about 50% of what you want it to be in a test match. Improved then as it went on with better service. Other players improved, but like, I think this team is even more between a rock and a hard place now, because Ireland should go into Six Nations as favourites because they've England and France at home. So they should go in as favourites. But they do need to start regenerating. And I think if you leave it to the summer, you run the risk of coming back the following November, this time next year, and saying, well, it was Romania and Georgia. And, there's that kind of catch-22. So it is interesting how it goes. Happy Ireland won. Not a great performance. It is important to win a couple of games without great performances. This one, arguably the weakest insofar as it just never really took off, bar the last 15 minutes or the last 20 minutes. I think, even to be fair, I think before Casey and Gurley came on, just when the bench had started to settle in, so they came on the 56th.
I think they needed to bring Casey on sooner, to be honest.
I would have brought Casey on the same time as O'Mahony and Henderson, but I would have brought them on about 5 minutes before that as well, if you know what I mean. I would have brought them on about 50 and give them a half an hour, because they're always going to take a few minutes to get into the flow of the game, which O'Mahony and Henderson did, but when they did, they actually did really well, the same with O'Toole. But definitely a need to kind of regenerate this Irish team. But we are conscious Ireland have never won 3 Six Nations in a row. And I don't think...
No one has.
No one has. And I don't think this team will want to let that opportunity slip, because
is that a statistic? Is it? No one's ever won it 3 times.
No one's won 3 in a row, because Wales could have done it
in the
in
Six Nations era.
Oh,
Wales could have done it in 2014. And
what about the 5 Nations? Has that been won 3 times in a row?
Oh, yeah, that has.
That was going for so long,
yeah,
though,
I think
wasn't it?
so. Yeah.
And it was 4 nations before then, so yeah.
I think England won it 3 times in a row.
But
do we think Australia come out of that autumn series with the biggest credit?
Oh, for sure.
Positive?
100%.
I
had a feeling they would.
Do I get to support them during the Lions tour then? Yeah, with hope.
If you would like to, yeah.
I think they had a big reality check against Scotland. And I don't think there's as many positives to take out of the Ireland game as people are making out. It was 3 tries to 1.
The tries are there. Like, you can't be saying, oh, look at this Premiership scoreline at one side of the pot, and then the other.
No, if it was 7 tries to 6, then I'd be saying that. But 3 tries to 1 is a comprehensive victory.
Joe Schmidt has tightened that side up, and it seemed to be playing with a certain style.
They look like a Joe Schmidt
team. They bought into it very, very well.
Yes, they have. But it's very interesting to see what happens next with them, because either.
Do you say next week?
No, next with them.
Oh,
It's
sorry. I
what-
thought you
what
said next
happen-
week. I was like,
What
what?
happens next with them? Because either
3 months off, isn't it?
Australian rugby will need to continue to become Joe Schmidtified, or Joe Schmidt will need to be starting allowing the Australians to be a bit more Australian, like they were against England. So it's interesting to see. But we are not an Australia podcast.
No.
Right.
I think honourable mention though, and I think Scotland. I think we come out of that Autumn Nations series with some significant credit as well. I think apart from
Did he?
yeah,
Yeah,
I
us
think
too.
so.
Yeah.
Did he? Like South
I think
Africa,
so.
yes, because South Africa went unbeaten. But like
Yeah.
Scotland,
The way we dismantled the Wallabies and no one else did, I think that was quite a positive for us.
It was an impressive performance. It was an impressive performance.
I do agree with that, but is it not kind of juxtaposed with the fact that we never had anything against South Africa?
Mm,
Do you know?
possible, but
Yeah, but remember,
I
South
think
Africa,
I think it ties in wonderfully to the cliche Scotland can beat anyone on their day.
But not
It was
every week,
perfectly
yeah.
Scotland that month, if you ask me.
Mm.
right, we've got loads of fixtures now to talk about with the European Cup. So without getting
Are
into
we doing
the
quick fire?
let's do a quick fire. Right, we'll only do the URC teams. Dragons
Oh, I want
hosting
to do Blanc La
Montpellier.
Rochelle.
Montpellier for that.
Yeah, comfortably.
I'm going
Glasgow,
to beat La Rochelle.
Not shut up, Caelan. Gloucester hosting Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
I think Gloucester will win. I think we'll send a weak team down.
I'll go Gloucester.
Gloucester like the Challenge Cup. I think they've made like 5 finals or something.
It was final last year, yeah.
Yeah.
Sharks Exeter. Sharks are going to win that. Surely.
Sharks, yeah.
Benetton going to Claremont. Claremont haven't lost at
Claremont.
home so far this season.
Claremont.
They
Mhm.
absolutely battered Castres yesterday. No, not doing that one. Munster
Aims to
Stade
be
Francais.
cast everyone for the
Stade
audio
Francais.
listeners.
No, so Munster versus Stade Francais. That's heritage. That's a
Yeah, it
heritage
is.
fixture.
That is heritage. I have to go Munster. Stade, you would assume, will not send the strongest team, considering
They
they're
never
what,
do.
12th in the top 14? Yeah, no, they never do. Even
They're
last
currently
year, they were
drawing
like
10
fifth.
all with Bayonne.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think, but then Munster drew 20 all with Bayonne at the opening round last year. I'll go with Munster. If the conditions are like they were the other night, going to be going up against a really beefy pack for the second week in a row, and that won't be as much fun. But like Munster have Byrne, Crowley, Casey, Nash, O'Mahony to come back in there, and hopefully Ahern and Jaeger as well. So
Saracens Bulls. Alan, are Bulls going to send a B team for this?
I don't. They might do. I'll go with Saracens.
team
for
are
that
already
one.
Still
north.
in it, but Saracens
Uh,
lost to the Falcons on Friday night.
Yeah, they lost
Ah.
to Newcastle.
I don't know. If the Bulls
That's
are
all
always in the
that
Northern
matters.
Hemisphere.
I'll go with the
They're
Bulls.
all-
I think the Bulls will
I
take
think-
that.
Because the
Let's
Bulls,
be
Bull-
nice
like-
to Saracens. Their
all-
7
all-
fans will be mad at us.
all the Bulls. Tell you what about Saracens 7 fans, right? They're online. They're online.
Yeah, they really
Well, I
are.
need 4 or 7.
Bulls. I don't know who said it, but the Bulls players are all already up here, so
Yeah. We just said
maybe
yeah.
they will play a proper team.
I'll go
Bless 'em.
Saracens just, but I wouldn't be too confident in that one.
Stormers Toulon. Toulon are
Stormers.
a nightmarish team to watch. They're a tight 5 and an 8 and a 9 and a good Fijian winger, and that's all there is to them. I think they'll send the Espoirs down to Cape Town.
But they're
not
top 4
sending.
of the top Cattles this year, so that they're having a good
Yeah,
domestic.
but I've watched
run
them.
so
They're
far.
crap. I don't know how they're fourth. They're not sending a good team down to Cape Town. Stormers to get back on the wagon for this one. Glasgow hosting Sale. Glasgow, you got to
Interesting.
Glasgow.
It'll be an
Glasgow with a bonus
interesting
point.
game. Though. Sale beat Leicester today quite comfortably.
Sale don't care about Europe, though, Ben.
But you're right, yeah. But it's not a long journey for them, so it'll be interesting.
No.
You know, it's probably the closest
I
game
think
going on, isn't it? Of the ones I
This
can
is
see
two
there.
teams
Yeah.
that need to show up in Europe for a change.
Absolutely. Glasgow need to rock up in Europe this year. Absolutely.
Like they lost to Quins last year in a game they should have won. Do you know?
Mm.
Speaking of Quins, they're up next. No,
Yeah, we're not talking about that. Leon hosting Cardiff.
Leon.
No idea. Leon are 14th in the top Cattles at the moment, but they've
Are
got
they?
good players. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
They've
go with
got-
Leon as well. The
they've
French
got
teams
quite-
are stronger,
Then
though.
we've got a URC game below that.
Yeah, Connacht Zebre. Connacht.
Zebra. Zebra. What how do you pronounce it? Zebra.
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 I think
That's
Cardiff
the-
might.
that's
I
the
think
quirk
Cardiff
of the
might
Challenge
sneak
Cup,
that
though, isn't
against
it?
Leon. I think
That's the
Cardiff might
quirk of
be.
the. That's
Go
the
on,
quirk of the Challenge Cup, though, isn't it? That there's a couple of
Yeah.
games where they are into the URC
Yeah, it's
games
because
there's
the
not enough
English
teams
get
to share
8
around the balls.
teams in the Challenge
Yeah.
Champions Cup.
Imagine 80% of the English teams in what is already a floundering league are in the top tier of European. Sorry, Champions Cup rugby. Can't call it Europe anymore. I'm actually going to switch mine to Cardiff because I realised who the out half for Leon is, so I'm just going to support Cardiff.
Leon are struggling.
He's not
They're
been playing.
They're second bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't. Welsh teams have a decent record in France, better than you'd think. And Cardiff, I think, have beaten Lyon a few times. So I'm going to go Cardiff. Bayern versus the Scarlets.
Bayern.
No idea. I've heard that Scarlets might have a few players back from the long-term injured list from that one, but probably
Bayern at
Bayern.
home. They're so good at home.
Yeah, French teams are. And then Black Lion hosting Van. Low-key, the most interesting fixture of the round.
Genuinely. But Van just beat La Rochelle, didn't it?
They did. They did
Yeah.
indeed.
See?
Yeah.
See? I read things. I go Black Lion for the fun.
I think Van beat La Rochelle in La Rochelle, didn't they, yesterday?
They did.
Off the top of my head. Yeah.
They did. La Rochelle's first loss at home in well over a year.
He was so proud of us that we actually know what happened at the top 14 for a change.
Yeah. We're only on bloody Saturday. We've still got Sunday games to go.
Yeah, this is the end of the show.
Flipping heck, lads. This is too much rugby. Who
Bordeaux
wants
to
this?
beat Leicester.
Yeah.
Okay.
Toulouse to beat Ulster.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Do cheaters count as Alan? Do you think cheaters are going to beat Perpignan?
Yes. Let's go with the Cheetahs. That's my second team in South Africa.
Are they playing in Amsterdam as well, Cheetahs?
I think so.
Germany?
Yeah, I think they're playing.
Yeah,
I thought they last season they were playing in Italy, so I'll play somewhere else this season. I'm not sure where they're home based. Let's go with the Cheetahs for that one.
God, Poe versus Newcastle Falcons.
You skipped a game.
I know. I'm coming back to
Bristol.
Okay.
Poe versus Newcastle Falcons. What a time to be alive, everybody.
That is peak Challenge Cup. That's Challenge Cup.
That is so Challenge Cup. Ospreys versus Lions again.
Love the URC again.
Lions. Didn't Lions win this game last year?
Is it being played at the Brewery Field Megadome?
Oh,
no, Ospreys beat the Lions twice last season.
Well, going back to Edinburgh, Gloucester, we seem to play Gloucester all the time in Europe. It doesn't seem to matter what year it is. We've played them last season. We played Saracens 2 seasons ago. We're playing Bayonne again this season.
Harlequins, Racing, and Toulouse Ulster always seem to play each other as well. Bristol versus Leinster. Okay, this is an interesting game because Bristol are flying in the Premiership, but they're not playing proper rugby. Leinster can play proper rugby, but are they going to turn up for it?
Geordie Barrett's going to play, so I think they'll win.
Whatever about Geordie Barrett. We've seen this fixture every year for the last 10 years, and Leinster not 10 years because they were shy 10 years ago. For the last 6 years, and Leinster rock up and they go to England. It's and then they win by 30 points. So Leinster are going to win by 30 points.
Okay, Caelan Doris is going to make Bristol cry, is he?
Oh, that'll be funny. Anyways, go on.
That's it. That's it. That's the end of it. That's all of them. Unless there's some on Monday. Any predictions for Loughborough Lightning against Gloucester Hartbury women?
Remember Monday Night Rugby during COVID.
Gloucester Hartbury are going to win that. Right. We're at the end of the podcast. Hooray! Congratulations, everybody. We've decided, producer Lee, that we're not doing next week, but we will do the week after, and we'll do a wrap up of the first 2 rounds of Europe. So see you then. Thank you to the Rugby ABC. I hope everybody's team wins, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.